This is the story of how Satoshi Tajiri, a loser gamer who got zero coochie, made $100 billion. How did he do this? He did it by collecting bugs.
What?
I swear. And this led to him creating Pokémon, a Japanese media franchise that consists of video games, anime, and movies that is collectively worth billions. One Piece?
I'm gonna pump those numbers up.
Marvel?
Those are rookie numbers.
Pokemon though?
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Satoshi Tajiri grew up a huge nerd who loved anime, games, and most of all insects. Not those insects, but let me just save that link real quick.
I want milk.
But crazy enough, it's this exact weird combination of interests and hobbies coupled with the fact that he grew up in an old rural town and failed severally in school that led to the creation of a media giant that would change the world and become the highest grossing media franchise in history. The journey to creating this media giant wasn't easy because the challenges Satoshi faced were outright terrible. But like with all great stories, we have to start at the beginning. Satoshi Tajiri was born in 1965 and grew up in the countryside of Machida, Tokyo. As a kid, he loved collecting insects. He'd spend days every week chasing down insects in the grasslands. So much so that other children called him Dr. Bug because of his weird hobby and the fact that he wanted to become an entomologist. But all the isolation and name-calling made Satoshi realize a very important truth, that the hoes don't like entomologists. Now, I research Japanese chicks on the hub every night, so I can tell you for free that Satoshi was right. But as Japan got more and more urban, the habitat Satoshi used to hunt bugs at disappeared. And as Satoshi entered his teens, he decided to focus on his other obsession, arcade games. His old hobby of capturing bugs would become very useful, however, in the development of a certain billion-dollar game. His obsession with playing arcade games eventually became problematic. He was missing so many classes that his parents thought he turned into a thug. His grades also began to drop. Satoshi really didn't care about anything other than games. Instead of studying, he was taking apart his Nintendo to see how it worked and coming up with new game ideas. Now, he was very lucky. The only game my parents ever bought me was called Go Outside and Play. His teachers even gave up on him, saying that he was lazy, unmotivated, and probably stupid. But after Satoshi realized he might end up becoming a waste man, he decided to do something about his grades and was able to cram hard enough to pass high school. Satoshi didn't end up going to uni, but instead did a 2-year course in Tokyo National College, where he majored in electronics and computer science. Remember those gaming ideas he made? One of them won a Sega video game contest by the time he was 17. Those hating teachers who said he'd be a loser were already starting to look very dumb. Interesting enough, the word Tajiri in my language means rich. During this time, Satoshi Tajiri met Ken Sugimori along with a huge group of fellow game-obsessed otaku. They were learning video game code and the building blocks of game design at an incredibly fast pace, mostly because they just loved games. They then decided to go pro and establish the game company Game Freak with the mission of making video games that could spark up the imagination of players and bring them the same joy the creators got from playing video games when they were young. It was on. Game Freak's first games were on the Nintendo Entertainment System, but were nothing special. Regardless, they kept churning out colorful and enjoyable games as fast as they could. And all this momentum created a snowball effect. During this time, Tajiri got a flash of genius. He saw the short cable Nintendo was using to connect 2 Game Boys that allowed players to compete against each other and had a vision. He pictured a reality where players would wander huge and unique lands, collecting small strange creatures which you could train and have fight other trainers. Each creature would be unique, and if trained properly, they'd evolve to even more powerful versions. Then you just rinse and repeat, making the game infinitely playable. Tajiri then took this incredible vision and pitched it to the Nintendo executives. Little did these men and women— wait, what year was this again? No, that these were the early drafts of Pokémon. The pitch was revolutionary. The executives even got so emotional that they told Satoshi to off. This was the late 80s. Phones looked like this. This was in fashion. You couldn't even get feed pics to beat it to from the internet. You had to manually buy magazines for your happy time, fam. Truly dark times. So connecting multiple Game Boys and developing such code for a video game was next to impossible. But this was Satoshi. Turning L's into W's is what he does. Luckily, Nintendo's big man game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, the man behind Mario, The Legend of Zelda, and Donkey Kong, saw the potential this game could have and became Tajiri's mentor. It wasn't all Pikachus and sunshine though. things were tough. Making this game and creating the necessary code for the Game Boy kit meant that the Game Freak staff was working an ungodly amount of hours and still seeing little to no progress. The company, which was used to churning out pretty successful games, had their income drop. And sadly, Tajiri couldn't afford to pay most of his staff, so the friends and brothers he'd been with all the way since college sadly had to quit. It got to the point that the project was almost completely shut down. Satoshi would work like a damn robot during this time. It's like he didn't need sleep. His superhuman drive kept him going. All things considered, it took Satoshi Tajiri 6 brutal years to fully develop Pokémon, but now he still had to sell it. It's now the mid-90s, and by this point Satoshi was running on fumes. The few developers he had left were so skinny and depleted that they looked like they were in a Red Cross commercial. Finally, Pokémon Red and Blue was released in 1996. Nobody expected it to make any money. During this year, Sony's PlayStation was absolutely crushing Nintendo in terms of sales. Things weren't looking good, but suddenly the game blew up. Tajiri, who had gone insanely far to simulate the same feeling he had as a kid, playing those arcade games and hunting those bugs, was able to create something that changed the game. Literally, Pokémon sold over 10 million copies in Japan before even being exported to America, where it had every kid and weird adult in a chokehold. Pokémon became an overnight sensation all over the world. It was addictive. They released a ton more video games, collecting cards, and merchandise. Later on, the franchise ended up becoming so popular that its creator ended up on the cover of Time magazine. And all this would lead to the creation of a long-running anime about a trainer who wants to become the very best.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. You can't stand as my real test.
Feels what? The feels! The anime was my first introduction to Pokemon, and it was just magical. Being a kid and watching Ash and what I thought was his weird looking but very cute cat Pikachu on their fun adventure to become the best in the world, it was just... I have no words to describe that feeling. But as always, have to hate. A lot of parents and teachers started complaining that Pokemon made their kids violent. That wasn't all. Some religious groups even went as far as calling it demonic, that it was witchcraft that was targeted at their kids in order to destroy their minds and morals. Now, I'm a good Christian boy.
Stop the cap.
But even I can say that they were full of shit. But my favorite were the groups that claimed that Pokemon taught kids that it was good to capture and torture sentient beings like the Pokemon, since they had free will and could talk. This was just stupid. They eat dogs in some parts of the world. How about you fix that? Those puppies are real. Pokemon are not. But then again, I can't judge. I've never eaten a puppy. Maybe they taste delicious. In the Japanese version of the anime, the main character is called Satoshi. What? Ash isn't his real name? He's named after the creator? I've been living a lie. My Ash isn't even called Ash. Is Pikachu even Pikachu? What the hell? Satoshi got most of his inspiration from old anime and Japanese shows like Godzilla and Ultraman, and has even stated that if he didn't design video games, he'd most likely be creating anime. Yo, stick to games, Satoshi. The anime industry isn't the best place to work at currently. Even Ling Ling here wouldn't work at MAPPA, bro.
Ling Ling, that was a joke. You better move those bricks before I get my belt.
Tajiri finally achieved his goal though. He wanted to give children the same joy he had during his bug collecting days, and I think that that's what true art is. A way of conveying the feelings of the artist to the audience. His story is full of life lessons, like believing in your vision and refusing to give up on your dreams, surpassing what your teachers and parents think of you, but most of all, he was able to bring my childhood so much joy despite us being in two different parts of the world, and I just want to say thank you, Satoshi Tajiri. And that is how a kid who was made fun of for liking bugs and failing in school became named by IGN as one of the top 100 game creators of all time, and had The Economist describe his work as Japan's most successful export. But the truly important question is, did Satoshi finally get some coochie? Yes, he did.